I'm still reeling from this, and I need to get it off my chest. I don't even know where to start, but I guess I'll just dive in. This is about my parents, who I love dearly, but who have made some absolutely baffling financial decisions that have now left them in a mess. And somehow, I'm the one they're turning to for help. I'm 28, barely keeping my own head above water, and now I'm stuck trying to figure out how to deal with this. Buckle up, because this is a long one. The backstory. My parents are in their early 60s, both retired about 3 years ago. Dad was a middle school teacher. Mom worked as an office manager for a small accounting firm. They weren't rich by any means, but they were frugal for most of their lives. Growing up, we didn't have a lot. Vacations were camping trips or driving to visit family. We shopped at thrift stores, and my parents were always clipping coupons. They owned a modest 3-bedroom house in a small town in Ohio, paid off the mortgage a few years before they retired, and had a decent nest egg saved up. I don't know the exact number, but I'd heard them mention a few $100,000 in their retirement accounts over the years. They weren't flashy people, so I always assumed they'd be fine. I moved out at 18 for college, got a degree in graphic design, and now I live in Chicago, working freelance and picking up part-time gigs to make ends meet. I'm not exactly rolling in it. My rent's $100-200 a month. I've got student loans, and I'm trying to save for like a future that doesn't involve living paycheck to paycheck. My parents always seemed proud of me for making it in the city, even though I'm just scraping by. We've never been super close emotionally. They're not the let's talk about our feelings type, but we talk every couple of weeks, and I visit for holidays. Normal family stuff, you know? The cruise. That started it all about a year ago. I started noticing my parents acting different. They'd call me up, all giddy, talking about this once-in-a-lifetime luxury cruise they'd booked. It wasn't just any cruise. It was one of those all-inclusive, around-the-world deals that lasts like 4 months. I remember the first time they told me about it. I was eating ramen in my tiny apartment, and they're going on about how they're going to see the fjords in Norway, sip wine in Tuscany, and visit some temple in Japan. I was happy for them, honestly. They'd worked hard their whole lives, and if they wanted to splurge, who was I to judge? But I did ask casually, how much is this costing you guys? Mom laughed it off and said, "Oh, don't worry about it, we've got it covered." I later found out, through my sister, who's 25 and still lives near them, that the cruise cost them $80,000 for 2 people. I nearly choked when I heard that. I mean, I get that it's a bucket list thing, but $80,000, that's more than I make in a year. My sister said they'd been obsessed with this idea of living their best life after seeing some influencer on Instagram talking about how you should spend your money on experiences, not things. Apparently, they've been following this couple who posts about their travels, and Mom got it in her head that this cruise was their chance to really live. I tried to bring it up gently once, like, "Hey, that sounds amazing, but are you sure you're good financially for something that big?" Dad just said, "We've got plenty saved, kiddo. You worry too much." So I dropped it. They're adults, right? They know what they're doing. Or so I thought. The bad investments. The cruise was just the beginning. When they got back last summer, they were different. Not in a good way. They were still riding this high of we're living the dream. But they seemed reckless. Mom started talking about how they were rethinking their portfolio because they wanted to make their money work for them. I'm no finance bro, but I know enough to get nervous when someone starts throwing around phrases like that. Turns out, they'd been sucked into some shady investment scheme through a guy Dad met at a local retirement planning seminar. This guy, let's call him Steve, was some slick-talking wealth advisor who wasn't even certified. My sister told me Steve had convinced them to pull a huge chunk of their retirement savings out of their boring, safe index funds and put it into high-yield opportunities. I don't know all the details because my parents were cagey about it, but from what I pieced together, they invested in 1. A startup for some eco-friendly gadget that was supposed to revolutionize recycling or something. They put in $50,000. The company folded 6 months later. No product, no nothing. Just gone. 2. Crypto. Oh God, the crypto. They bought into some obscure coin because Steve said it was the next Bitcoin. They sank $30,000 into it. Last I checked, that coin's worth about $0.02. 3. A real estate venture in some sketchy development project in Florida. They put in $40,000, thinking they'd get rental income. Turns out the land was basically a swamp, and the developer disappeared. Shocker. By my rough math, that's $120,000 down the drain, on top of the $80,000 cruise. And that's just what they admitted to. My sister thinks there might be more they're too embarrassed to tell us about. The phone call. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago. I'm in the middle of a freelance project, stressed out because a client keeps changing their mind about a logo design when my phone rings. It's Mom. She's crying, like sobbing. I've never heard her like this. She's always been the stoic one, the one who tells me to buck up when I'm stressed. Dad gets on the phone too, and he sounds like he's been punched in the gut. They tell me they're in trouble. Apparently, they'd been dipping into their savings to cover their bills because their Social Security and Dad's small pension weren't cutting it. They'd burned through most of their liquid savings on the cruise and the bad investments, and now they were looking at their accounts and realizing they had maybe $20,000 left, total, for the rest of their lives. Their house is paid off, but property taxes, utilities, and just like living costs were eating them alive. They'd even taken out a small home equity loan to cover some credit card debt they racked up post-cruise. They didn't say how much, but I'm guessing it's bad. Mom kept saying, "We thought we were being smart. We thought we were investing in our future." Dad was quieter, just muttering stuff like, "I should have known better." They weren't asking me for money outright, but it was clear they were hoping I'd offer to help. The kicker? They ended the call by saying, "We don't want to be a burden, but we might need to move in with you for a bit if things don't turn around." I'm sorry. What? I live in a one-bedroom apartment that's 600 square feet. I can barely afford my own groceries. The idea of my parents moving in with me I can't even wrap my head around it. I love them, but I'm not equipped to be their safety net. I hung up the phone and just sat there, staring at my laptop, feeling like the world's worst daughter for even thinking, this is not my problem. Where I'm at now. Since that call, I've been a mess. I talked to my sister, who's just as freaked out. She's a barista and lives with roommates. She's in no position to help either. We both feel guilty, but also angry. Like, how did they let this happen? They were the ones who taught us to be careful with money, to save, to avoid. And now they're the ones who fell for some smooth-talking con artist and blew their life savings on a cruise and pipe dreams. I did some research and suggested they talk to a real financial advisor, like someone who's a fiduciary and doesn't have a vested interest in selling them crap. I also told them to look into part-time work. Dad could tutor, Mom could do some remote admin stuff. They seemed open to it, but they're so embarrassed and defeated that I don't know if they'll follow through. I've been reading about reverse mortgages and stuff like that, but I don't even know if that's a good idea or just another way to dig a deeper hole. The worst part is the guilt. They're my parents. They raised me, paid for my braces, drove me to soccer practice, co-signed my first car loan. I feel like I should help them, but I don't know how. I can't give them money. I don't have it. I can't let them move in without completely upending my life. And honestly, I'm mad. I'm mad they didn't tell me sooner. Mad they didn't listen when I tried to ask questions. Mad that they thought they could just YOLO their way through retirement without a plan. What I need from you guys, I don't even know what I'm asking for here. Advice, I guess. Has anyone dealt with parents who made terrible financial decisions and then turned to you for help? How do you set boundaries without feeling like a monster? Are there resources for retirees who've screwed themselves over like this? I've been lurking on this sub for a while, and you all seem to know your stuff, so I'm hoping someone can point me in the right direction. I just keep replaying that phone call in my head. Mom's voice cracking, Dad's silence. It's breaking my heart, but I'm also so frustrated I could scream. How do I help them without ruining my own life in the process? TLDR. My parents spent $80,000 on a luxury cruise and lost $120,000 on bad investments, leaving them with almost no savings. They called me crying, hinting they might need to move in with me, but I'm 28, broke, and live in a tiny apartment. I feel guilty, angry, and overwhelmed. Need advice on how to help them without drowning myself. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thank you all for the responses. I'm trying to read through them, but I'm at work, and it's a lot. To answer a few questions, no, they haven't looked into bankruptcy yet, but I'll bring it up. Yes, they still own their house, but I don't know the exact value, probably around $200K based on the area. And no, I haven't given them any money yet because I literally don't have it. I'll update when I can. Thanks again.